All right, so you're ready to print your zinc plate. A couple of things you have to do to start. You're going to prepare your paper and put it in the water so it soaks. You've marked the back so you know where the back is, so you have a pencil X on it. You're also going to create a template, and the template can be on drawing paper, newsprint, but the template is going to have the outline of your zinc plate and the outline of your paper, so that when you're ready to print, especially printing your edition, and your edition has to be exact every time, you'll be able to put your plate on here and then line your paper up so that you have the same size border every time you print. So I make my template first. Sometimes I make multiple templates because they will get dirty as you put the inked plate on them. So I have my template on the plate, and now we're ready to go over to the printing area. So we put our hot plate on warm, and sometimes warm gets very hot. I put a piece of scrap newspaper underneath so I don't get ink all over the hot plate. And we're going to have to use our hands to clean off the plate at the final stages, and it does get very warm. So I've put Band-Aids on my fingers, and I have Band-Aids here. These will keep the plate from burning your fingertips. So we're going to want rubber gloves on over top of those, because this is a messy process, or it can be. And we also need to open up our ink, which I will do that in a second. All right, so our ink has a piece of tape over it to seal it and keep the air from getting out, or excuse me, getting in and drying up the ink. So we don't want to lose that tape. So what I do is I stick it to the counter so I know where it is when I'm done, and I can wrap it back around. And we pry off our lid. We have a piece of wax paper in here that helps protect the ink from drying out. We need to pull that up and out of the way, and again, very messy, thick stuff, but we don't want to take that out. And then we're going to take a piece of mat board, and we have several pieces of mat board pre-cut, and there will be more over here, to use to scrape out our ink. And we don't want to dig in the ink. We want to scrape off the top in a circular motion so that we keep the ink nice and flat. In case air does get in, it'll just dry the top of the ink, and then it'll make like a layer of dried ink that we can peel off, and there will be good ink underneath. If we dig in, air gets down to the bottom and dries the whole jar out. We don't want that. So we're going to scrape and get a little bit more. And hot plate is warm, and we're going to spread that on the plate evenly, coating the entire surface. I'm going to need a little bit more probably, but as I'm spreading it, I'm pushing it down so it gets into those grooves that we've etched in with our acid. And you see I'm spreading it evenly. I'm not leaving it on really thick. We don't want this to look like icing on a cake that's too thick and wasteful. This ink is expensive, so we want to be smart. So I spread it on, scrape it across, and I take any excess, if there was any, and I'd scrape it in. There isn't any excess. This can be thrown away. We don't have to save these and reuse them. And so I'm going to fold that over and put the lid on right now, and I'll put the tape on after. So now that I've got the ink on, my next step is to grab a dabber. And we have two dabbers that I've made. One's been used, one has not been used yet. Just different sizes, whatever's more comfortable for you. But the dabber is going to be used to push the ink into the grooves of the etched lines. And so we push down in a circular motion, and we make sure we do this over the entirety of the surface. And I'm using a little bit of muscle from my shoulder to push that in. I don't want to be shy about this. I want to get the ink in there. I may just go over it again just to be sure. And these dabbers will get covered with ink, and they'll be good through the entirety of this project. Even if they look really, black and coated with ink, they last a while, and they can be used probably next year as well. All right, so I'm going to set the dabber over here. And now we're going to go over to this box where I have 2 tarlatans. Eventually, these tarlatans will be covered with ink as all of you start printing more. And what we're going to do is have 1 tarlatan that's going to be more covered with ink, and we call that our fatty tarlatan. It's got more oil on it. And we'll have 1 that's a little bit cleaner. You're going to start with your dirtier tarlatan or your more fatty tarlatan to start wiping the ink off. And at this stage, I can be a little more aggressive as I'm wiping. And I want to make sure the plate stays warm. It's still warm. If it feels like, if you've turned it down and when you start wiping, if it feels like it's hard to really move the ink, it could be that the plate needs to be a little bit warmer. The ink will set and be very stiff if the hot plate is too cold. So I just turn it up a little. So you're wiping in this wiping motion, trying to remove some of the ink to get it to about mid-tone value. So I want to be able to start to see some of the plate coming through and some of the image coming through as I wipe. And sometimes the plate will shift on you. You just have to get it comfortable. If the hot plate is too hot and you're having trouble with the plate shifting, you can take a piece of mat board and use it to hold your plate in place as you wipe. And sometimes it takes a little patience and time to get that ink to come off. But I do want to be patient, and I want to make sure I keep the tarlatan in a nice smooth ball, and that helps so that I don't have all these crinkles and edges that may grab into some of the groove lines and pull ink out that you don't want out. All right, so we're starting to see the plate emerge. The hot plate is pretty warm, so I'm going to turn it down a little. And again, I'm going to just try to hold it in place as I wipe. All right, so when it starts to get to this point where I can see a little bit of my plate coming through, I'll switch to a cleaner side of the tarlatan, or I could switch to the less fatty tarlatan. But for the purposes of this, because this tarlatan doesn't have a lot of ink on it, I'm just going to roll it into a cleaner section and start to wipe a little bit more. And this time I'm not going to be as aggressive. I'm wiping a little bit lighter to get some of the ink off and allow my image to emerge a little bit more. Now, some printmakers will keep going with tarlatans to wipe the ink, ones that have a lot of experience and aren't afraid of taking off too much ink with their tarlatans. I like to get to about this point where I can see the image, and I have about maybe a number 4 or 5 on a value scale showing with the ink in the plate, and go to phone book page squares that I've already pre-torn. I'm going to take this a little bit more, just so the demo doesn't take too long with the phone book pages. So I'm carefully wiping, getting a little bit more of that ink off with my tarlatan. All right, now I'm going to put the tarlatan aside and make sure this is down again. I'm going to grab phone book pages, and they're torn into squares, and we have a phone book over here that you can tear more from if they run low. And this is why I have the Band-Aids on my fingertips. I'm going to lay the phone book page down flat, and I'm going to use my 2 fingers, and I'm going to go in a circular motion, wiping off the ink. I don't want to dab like I did. I want to keep it flat and circular. I don't want any folds in the paper, so flat and circular. And the Band-Aids will keep your fingers from getting too hot. And then I'm going to throw these away as I'm working. Garbage can should be set up next to you. And this process takes patience. Takes time to get all this ink off. And what we want to see as we're removing this ink is we want our plate to look almost as shiny as it did after we degreased it. And just to remind you, you should have degreased your plate before you got to this point. That's okay. All right, so again, just have to be patient as we do this process. And the reason we want the plate to be shiny is if you leave too much ink on, or it doesn't look shiny and zinc-like again, when we print, we get what's called a plate tone. And the areas that are supposed to be white won't be white. They'll be kind of grayish, slightly dirtyish, and will make your print unsuccessful. You do not want plate tone. Even if you think it looks cool, it doesn't, because you need an addition, and the addition has to be exact, and you can't get an exact repeat of your plate tone every time if you're trying to get this, foggy, dirty look. You do that with Aquatint. So we want to make sure our plate is wiped clean so we don't have plate tone. And we're getting there. And the phone book page process or step of this printing is, again, to clean off the surface and keep the ink inside the etched lines. Keeping it flat like this just takes the plate tone off and keeps our ink in our etched image. And when you're getting to a good clean plate when you look at your phone book paper and it's not as black as it was when you started. So you can see this is definitely not as dark as some of the earlier pieces. So we're making progress and almost ready to print. This side obviously still needs some work, but we're close. And you really want to pay attention to your corners. Sometimes we miss those as we wipe. And so what I would do at this step is lift this up and get to a cleaner piece of newspaper underneath, so I get all that extra ink out of the way. All right, and I think I'm getting to a good clean plate. But as you can see from watching this demo, it takes time. You do have to set yourself several hours when you're trying to print your edition, and be patient. And sometimes you can see where the ink is still built up, especially in like the Aquatint, and you just hit it with your phone book paper and we should be good. All right, so at this stage, I'm going to say it's good. Hopefully it is when I print. If there's a little bit of plate tone, I'll blame it on me trying to rush through the demo because I don't want to bore you. I'm just going to get this side a little bit better. And so at this point, what I do is take my paper and I bring my plate to the edge of the hot plate. Whoa, ripping on me. So I'm just trying to get this to the edge of the hot plate without getting my dirty finger gloves all over it. So I can take, over here I have these little squares of old printing cloth that I use for edge wipes. And these can get used multiple times. And we're going to take the edge wipe and wipe carefully along our edge and go at a downward stroke so that we're not putting all this excess ink back on the plate. And what you can do just to be safe is take a piece of your phone book paper and go over the edge after you wipe it, or over the plate right by the edge after you wipe it. I'm going to turn this and get all 4 edges. We really want to try to get a nice clean edge. We don't want the cloth to hit the front of the plate where our image is, because it will remove ink out of your etched lines, so we want to be careful. I'm going to turn it again. That edge had a lot of ink on it, so I'm definitely going to take my phone book paper and carefully do the edge next to it. All right, I'm going to turn to the last side. And one more time with the phone book paper. All right, so now I'm going to put this back on the hot plate to stay warm, and we're going to remove the gloves and go over to our paper. Make sure our hands are clean so that we don't grab the paper and get ink on it. And we need to squeeze the water out of our paper, so we're going to put it in between 2 sheets of heavy paper called blotter paper, and roll it with a roller. Just a few, 3, 4, 5 rolls over the top. We'll squeeze enough water out. And if you don't squeeze that well and get the water out, it could prevent the ink from getting on the paper. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to go grab my plate. And we're going to set our plate onto our template that we've already outlined. And I want to try to be careful and get that in my outline, because if sometimes you can get ink on the back of your plate, and if it gets on, I'm just going to have to be good. If it gets on the template paper, it could get into your border of your leaves. You don't want that. So again, I'm going to make sure I don't have any ink on my fingers. I did get some on the Band-Aid, so I'm going to remove those. And grab the paper. And I want to make sure I know where the back is. And the back is going to face up, so I see my pencil mark. I lay the paper in the template. And I lay the blankets over, which should be in the order of pusher, cushion, and sizing catcher. And the plate, or the press, is set at 7 on the vertical scale and 6 on the dial at the top. And that should be set on the same on both sides. And that should have, when I roll it through here, should have a nice tension. Yes, I can feel it now. It should take some coaxing through. Again, not so much that you're going to bend and curl the plate, but you want to feel a good amount of tension, so it's pushing your paper into the plate, squishing that Reeves BFK paper into those etched lines. And I'm going to go through back one more time. You don't have to, but sometimes I just like to be cautious. And now we reveal and hope for the best. All right, so looking at this print, we've got a good range of value. Our paper is almost as white as the border. You can see these dark lines on the paper. That's nothing to worry about. That's just water. That'll dry and everything will be white. So this is a good plate tone. We see that where we have white, where we've left our plate free of any etching, it should be almost the same value as the border. It should be either as white or almost as white. So this is a decent plate tone. I could probably take it down a little bit more, but I'm happy with it. So that's how to print your intaglio plate. Thank you.